Hi, I'm Lita North, and this is my outroduction submission for Introduction to Social Work. I am smiling right now because I'm very happy to be wrapping up the school year, although I did enjoy what I learned in the curriculum. There were a couple things that affirmed what I already knew about social work, but the course also added to it. As in my introduction post on Blackboard, I wrote that I wanted to learn how to work with my own personal biases when practicing as a social worker. And I was pleasantly surprised to learn that the Canadian Association of Social Work, their code of ethics actually outlines their expectation for social workers to be aware of their personal biases. And in one of the lectures, the concept of reflexive practice was introduced as a kind of a process to develop one's constant awareness of their personal biases and questioning them when making decisions that affect their clients. And with this, I wish to practice this critical thinking approach regularly so that it becomes more natural to me by the time I become a registered social worker. This course reaffirmed my knowledge that social work professionals can help people of all ages and backgrounds through counseling, psychotherapy, child protection, child welfare, and case management. Excuse me. Social workers can work in a large variety of settings, which contributed to my desire to wanting to become a social worker, as I like to have room to grow and change the environment I work in so that I don't feel stagnant. I also learned that in order to determine the type of service someone needs, we need to determine the type of need that they have, whether it be future, basic, abstract, concrete, physical, or an emotional need. I was also surprised to learn that social workers once played a role in the oppression of Indigenous peoples, which I believe we should all be aware of so that we can be more sensitive to that population and how they may have a mistrust in the system due to this. And I also found it fascinating to learn how intergenerational trauma can be stored physiologically in the brain. I knew of intergenerational trauma as a concept, but I always thought it was just passed down through word of mouth among Indigenous peoples, much like their cultural teachings and beliefs. This just solidifies, how it's so much more deeper embedded in a person's almost identity, kind of as a life sentence, because it's really hard to reverse the effects of intergenerational trauma in one lifetime. But I hope to contribute to doing that as a social worker. I was also excited to learn about the collective practice paradigm, as it makes sense to collaboratively help a severely oppressed population by integrating their practices and beliefs with ours in a culturally sensitive manner. The more I learn, the more I resonate with Indigenous teachings. For example, the Medicine Wheel Center as a representation to begin with helping the self before you help others is integral to meaningful social work practice. I mean, how are you supposed to help someone meet their needs when you haven't met your own? And for my art-based awareness project, I initially chose to learn about the history of Indigenous people, as I used to work as a security guard at the local hospital, and the patients, the troubled patients that I'd work with, they were, Indigenous people were severely overrepresented among those troubled patients. As well as, I know I have Indigenous heritage through the Algonquin tribe, and I wanted to learn about how what my ancestors endured. And also, I mean, the increasing dialogue about racism in the world right now, it's definitely piqued my interest, and I still wish to continue learning about this, as it's a multi-layered issue, and takes more than just 12 weeks to be fully aware of everything. So I did decide, however, to cover LGBTQ issues of oppression through highlighting a story of Ives and Coyote, as I read their book and I felt passionate regarding their story as a queer youth growing up in the Yukon in the 1970s. And I wondered, how common are the occurrences of oppression against LGBTQ people today? I once thought it couldn't be that bad because my generation as a millennial, I feel like we were raised to at least by my parents, I was raised to just accept people for where they were at. So growing up like that, I didn't understand just how prevalent LGBTQ oppression still was in Canada. And I learned that it began when the British and French colonizers imposed Victorian and religious beliefs on Indigenous communities, actually, in which same-sex marriage was legal and two-spirit peoples once thrived. I was surprised to learn how often present-day oppression still occurs against the LGBTQ community. In my written assignment, I noted that queer and trans people continue to experience discrimination by means of heterosexism and cissexism in the workforce, healthcare, social service, and educational institutions. In my AAR presentation, I also discussed how Ives and Coyote's experiences of oppression among family members were due to a long history of internalization through reinforced intergenerational, heteronormative, and cisnormative values. So Logie et al. Actually, they assert that while this population is geographically isolated, the lack of relevant affirmative services are due to varied distribution of resources and funding by the federal system. This suggests that LGBTQ Canadians in the Arctic are not a priority. Moving forward, I feel that it is integral for each social work professional to develop their awareness of LGBTQ issues as they pertain to historical experiences and the needs of the population. Therefore, it is essential for social workers to ensure their place of work for service delivery is a safe space that encourages and provides non-judgmental support for LGBTQ persons to feel as though they have control over the issues that directly affect them. This class met my goals for taking this course, as it encouraged me to develop a deeper understanding of current social issues as they pertain to oppression among certain populations, and it encouraged me to view them through an intersectional lens. I am thankful that it complemented the curriculum that was covered in other classes, such as the textbook Anti-Oppressive Social Work by Dumbrill and Yee. I wish to continue to expand my knowledge and act as a catalyst for change through advocating for oppressed populations, and hopefully have a positive impact on current flawed systems in our country. As according to Dumbrill and Yee, social workers are expected to take active roles in working against oppressive structures and practices. And that's further solidified by what we covered in this class. So, yeah, I hope you liked my introduction and enjoy your spring and your summer.